I don't know, Stacker, Strub. We're doing a reading. TikTok, this is a reading. It's educational purposes only. We're educating the masses. All right, let's get started, everybody. Here we go. And here we go. Chapter 6. Historical Materialism. Viewpoints about humans and the history creating role of the masses. Section 1. Human and human nature. 1. Definition of humans. Humans are natural beings with social characteristics. There is a dialectical unity between two essential aspects of human beings, the natural aspect and the social aspect. And we have our first picture. As soon as I can expand it. So we have social aspects, all of us getting together, and the natural aspect, meaning that we engage with nature. And I would say that we should bring that into reciprocity. All right, thank you, Joe. The natural aspects of humanity is defined by the relationship between humanity and nature. The social aspect is defined by relationship which exists within and between human society. Humans are natural beings. This means that humans exist in and as a part of nature. This constitutes a relationship of dialectical unity in which the natural aspect determines the social aspect, but the social aspect can impact back in important ways. This distinguishes human beings from all other elements of nature, as is the social aspect of humanity. This social aspect describes the ways in which humans can work together to consciously and intentionally develop our material productions over time. Social aspects in humanity is described as being, natural aspects of humanity. The primary material base which regulates the formation, existence, and development of humanity is the natural world. The natural world simply refers to the environment which human beings develop within. It is important to note that human beings are not metaphysically distinct from nature. Rather, humans exist in dialectical unity with nature, reciprocity. As Engels wrote in the part played by labor in the transition from ape to man, we by no means rule over nature, like a conqueror over a foreign people, like someone standing outside of nature, but that we, with flesh and blood and brain, belong to nature and exist in its midst, and that all our mastery of its consists in the fact that we have the advantage over all other beings of being able to know and correctly apply its laws. For this reason, the fundamental aspect of human beings is that we have a natural aspect. Therefore, scientific research and discovery of the natural structures and natural origins of humans is an important scientific basis for humans to understand ourselves and to master ourselves in every activity that contributes to the history of humanity. The natural aspects of humanity refers to all the characteristics of human beings, which arise from dialectical relationships with the natural world. In addition, humans also have a social aspect, which is defined by internal relationships which exist between human beings. The natural and social aspects of humanity are explained more. Because human beings have a natural aspect, it is important to study the natural characteristics, phenomena, and relationships of human beings in order to have a comprehensive understanding of humanity. This means we must study fields like human biology, human evolution, human psychology, and so on, if we are to fully understand human society and its development. I think this is too soon to do notes, right? Are you there? Hello? Are you there? Little too soon? Okay, good. Little too soon. Thank you. I just barely saw it. My fault. The natural aspects of humanity is analysis. Wait, let me make sure I'm on the right one. Yeah. Was development, right? That's the last thing I said. Yeah. The natural aspects of humanity is analyzed from and following two viewpoints. First, I'm a Maoist. This is important because historical materialism is important still. Okay. First, humans are the result of long-term evolution and development in the natural world. Scientific basis of this conclusion has been established by the whole development of materialism in natural sciences, and in particular, a Darwinian theory of evolution of species. Yeah, sure, whatever. Second, humans are part of the natural world, and at the same time, the natural world serves as a inorganic body of humanity. The economic and philosophical manuscripts written in 1844, Marx wrote that nature is man's inorganic body. Nature, that is, insofar as it is not itself human body. Man lives on nature, means that nature is his body, with which he must remain in continuous interchange if he is not to die. That man's physical and spiritual life is linked to nature means simply that nature is linked to itself, for man is a part of nature. Marx is describing human beings as having two bodies, which allow us to exist in the world. Every individual human being has an organic body, which is simply our physical body in the literal sense. This body allows a human being to live and exist in the world. Similarly, nature serves as an inorganic body for all of humanity, which we depend upon for life and existence. Therefore, changes in the natural world, as well as the direct or indirect impact of natural law, determines the existence and development of humans and human society. And human society is the medium of material exchange between human beings and the natural world. On the other hand, the changes and activities of humans always impact the natural environment, changing that environment. This is a dialectical relationship between the existence of humanity and other existence of the natural world. However, humans are not identical with other existence of the natural world. One attribute which particularly defines humanity is its social aspect. The social aspects of humanity. The social aspects of humanity is expressed by the special relationship which humans have with their many social communities, such as family, class, nation, humankind, and so on. Therefore, in addition to have a natural aspect, humans must also have a social aspect. And moreover, this aspect is particularly defined by humanity. The social aspect of humanity is what distinguishes human beings from all other entities in the natural world. Human beings are different from all other known forms of life because we are able to form societies and to intentionally work and labor together to develop ourselves through conscious labor activity. This social aspect of humanity is further defined. Okay. All right, here we go. The social aspects of humanity is analyzed from the following viewpoints. First, from the viewpoint of origin. Human beings originated through natural evolution processes and through social origins. The primary factor of social origins is labor. It is through labor processes that we are able to surpass animals, to evolve and develop into human beings. This viewpoint of origin is one of the new discoveries of Marxist-Leninism that makes it possible to complete the theory of human origin for the first time in history. Labor and dialectical materialism framework refers specifically to conscious human activity. The viewpoint of origin is a starting point of analysis which pertains to the origins of human consciousness and humanity itself. These origins are important because they constitute the starting point of human society. The relationship between matter and consciousness is consistent and predictable in every aspect of human society and at every stage of development of humanity. Matter always determines consciousness, whereas consciousness can always impact upon matter. Human consciousness originated from human labor activities. This origins is described more in part. Okay, this is consistent with dialectical materialism conception of the relationship between matter and consciousness, that matter determines consciousness, while consciousness can impact back upon the material world. Material production processes led to the development of consciousness. The viewpoint of origins is critical for developing a comprehensive and historical perspective of humanity. Marx explains how conscious labor processes enable man being to surpass all other animals of economic and philosophical manuscripts. Through material production, humans change nature. An animal produces one only itself, whilst man reproduces the whole of nature. Get a drink real quick. The philosophy of Marxist-Leninism further explains how conscious labor activities lead to the development of human beings as distinct from all other animals. Social characteristics of humans express themselves in material production. Material production fundamentally demonstrates the social characteristics of humans. Through labor, we create the mental and material means to serve human life. Through labor, humans form conscious thoughts and languages and determine our social relationship. Therefore, labor is the decisive factor in the formation of humanity, social nature, as well as the formation of individual personalities in the community. Second, from the viewpoint of existence and development, humans' existence is always governed by social factors and social laws. As society changes, each person also changes accordingly. Likewise, the development of each individual is the premise for the development of human society. So that means that people have to develop, because when people develop, it helps develop the human society. Without social relationship, each human being only exists as a pure biological entity that cannot be human with the full meaning of that term. In dialectical materialist framework, all things, phenomena, and ideas are defined by internal and external relationships. Thus, we must understand that each human being as an individual is defined in large part by relationships with other human beings. These relationships between individual humans, in turn, are the internal relationships which define human society. Relationships are also what drive all change, motion, and development. Hence, we can see that 1. Human society is defined by relationships between human beings, and human beings are defined by their relationship with human society. Of course, I have to appeal, everybody. Too strict, TikTok, too strict. 2. Change and development of both human society and individual human beings are driven by these dialectical relationships. These 2 points taken together serve as a basis for the viewpoint of existence and development of human society, which holds that the existence and development of humanity is defined by relationships between individual human beings and human society. This is an important starting point of an analysis of both human society and of human beings as individuals, and is therefore a critical viewpoint of historical materialism. As Marx explains in the Grandeur, society does not consist of individuals, but express the sum of interrelations, the relations within which these individuals stand, as if someone were to say, seen from the perspective of society, where there are no slaves and no citizens. Both are human beings. Rather, they are that outside society. To be a slave, to be a citizen, a social characteristics, relationships between human beings, A and B. Human beings A, as such, is not a slave. He is a slave in and through society. To put it another way, Whether a person is a slave, a worker, or a capitalist depends entirely on social relations with other human beings. There's no way that a human being could exist in any of these economic classes as an isolated individual. In this manner, society is defined by individuals who exist in various economic roles, just as individuals are defined by society. This constitutes a dialectical relationship in which society and individuals mutually change and develop one another over time. The viewpoint of existence and development perceives the social aspects of humanity because it focuses on the fact that human beings are defined by human society. Taking the natural aspect and social aspect of humanity together, we see that human nature is defined by these two essential aspects. Human nature is determined by material processes in the natural world, and human nature is defined by the social interrelations. In both of these aspects, human nature is consistently changing and developing, just like all other things, phenomena, and ideas in existence in accordance with principles of development of dialectical materialism. Should we stop right here and let you do the notes? 252. Let me look ahead. 252.
I don't mind doing the notes right now.
Yeah, it looks like this would be a good stopping point. Let's do this. 252, right? Right. Let me do something first before you take your notes.
Okay.
Do this. All right, go ahead.
Okay. Chapter 6, historical materialist viewpoints about humans and the history creating role of the masses. Humans and human nature. Definition of humans. Humans are natural beings with social characteristics. There is a dialectical unity between two essential aspects of human beings, the natural aspect and the social aspect. The natural aspect of humanity is defined by the relationship between humanity and nature. The social aspect is defined by relationships which exist within and between human societies. Humans are natural beings. This means that humans exist in and as a part of nature. Social aspect describes the way in which humans can work together to consciously and intentionally develop our material production over time. Natural aspect of humanity. The primary material basis which regulates the formation, existence, and development of humanity is the natural world. The natural world simply refers to the environment which human beings develop within. It is important to note that human beings are not metaphysically distinct from nature. Rather, human beings exist in dialectical unity with nature. A fundamental aspect of human beings is that we have a natural aspect. Therefore, scientific research and discovery of the natural structure and natural origins of humans is an important scientific basis for humans to understand ourselves and to master ourselves and every activity that contributes to the history of humanity. The natural aspect of humanity refers to all characteristics of human beings which arise from dialectical relationship with the natural world. Because human beings have a natural aspect, it is important to study the natural characteristics, phenomena, and relationships of human beings in order to have a comprehensive understanding of humanity. This means we must study fields like human biology, human evolution, human psychology, and so on if we are to fully understand human society and its development. The natural aspect of humanity is analyzed from the following two viewpoints. First, humans are the result of long-term evolution and development in the natural world. Second, humans are part of the natural world, and at the same time, the natural world serves as an inorganic body for humanity. Every individual human being has an organic body, which is simply our physical body in the literal sense. Similarly, nature serves as an inorganic body for all of humanity, which we depend upon for life and existence. Changes in the natural world, as well as the direct or indirect impacts of natural laws, determine the existence and development of humans and human society, and human society is the medium of material exchange between humans and the natural world. One attribute which particularly defines humanity is its social aspect. The social aspect of humanity. The social aspect of humanity is expressed by the special relationships which individual humans have with their many social communities, such as family, class, nation, humankind, and so on. Therefore, in addition to having a natural aspect, humans must also have a social aspect, and moreover, this aspect is particularly defining of humanity. The social aspect of humanity is what distinguishes human beings from all other entities in the natural world. The social aspect of humanity is analyzed from the following viewpoints. First, from the viewpoint of origin. Human beings originated through natural evolution processes and through social origins. The primary factor of social origin is labor. It is through labor processes that we were able to surpass animals to evolve and develop into human beings. The viewpoint of origin is a starting point of analysis which pertains to the origin of human consciousness and humanity itself. These origins are important because they constitute the starting point for human society. Matter always determines consciousness, whereas consciousness can always impact upon matter. Human consciousness originated from human labor activities. Second, from the viewpoint of existence and development. Human existence is always governed by social factors and social laws. As society changes, each person also changes accordingly. Likewise, the development of each individual is the premise for the development of human society. Without social relationships, each human being only exists as a pure biological entity that cannot be, quote, human, with the full meaning of that term. In the dialectical materialist framework, all things, phenomena, and ideas are defined by internal and external relationships. Relationships are also what drive all change, motion, and development. Hence, we can see that 1. Human society is defined by relationships between human beings, and human beings are defined by their relationship with human society. 2. Change and development. Who's breathing? Someone is breathing. Change and development of both human society and individual human beings are driven by these dialectical relationships. These 2 points, taken together, serve as the basis for the viewpoint of existence and development of human society, which holds that the existence and development of humanity is defined by relationships between individual human beings and human society. To put it another way, whether a person is an enslaved person, a worker, or a capitalist depends entirely on social relations with other human beings. There is no way that a human being could exist in any of these economic classes as an isolated individual. In this manner, society is defined by individuals, just as individuals are defined by society.
No.
Okay, I'm reading. This constitutes a dialectical relationship in which society and individuals mutually change and develop one another over time. Taking the natural aspect and social aspect of humanity together, we see that human nature is defined by these 2 essential aspects. Human nature is determined by material processes in the natural world, and human nature is defined by social interrelations. And that's where we're at.
All right, thank you. Unity of natural and social aspects of humanity. These 2 aspects of humanity, the natural aspect and the social aspect, exist in unity, determining each other, impacting each other, and transforming each other, thereby creating the potential for creative human activity in the world of the process of making human history. Therefore, explaining the creative nature of humans from only the natural aspects or from only the social aspects in one-sided, incomplete, and inevitably led to erroneous conclusions in perception and practice. The natural aspect, i.e., the viewpoint of origin, the social aspect, origins of existence and development of human exist in unity. This means that they share a dialectical relationship in which they define one another and lead to change to develop in one another. Both the natural aspect and the social aspect of humanity contribute dialectically to the creative nature of humanity. The natural aspect determines creativity in human beings because humans must create through labor processes in order to create the necessity of human life. The objective needs of human beings to sustain and develop these material needs leads to a creative nature, which also results in an objective need to constantly develop the productive forces of human society. The social aspect determines creativity in human beings because human beings share and cooperate creative developments through various forms of culture and material exchange. Creativity is, therefore, a social process in which individual human beings contribute, but also receive and learn from one another in order to develop and improve creative abilities over time. Because the natural and social aspects of humanity exist in unity, they must be examined and understood together. It must be understood that they dialectically impact, determine, and develop one another in order to fully understand the nature of human beings completely. The natural labor processes which human beings undertake to provide for our material needs are also social processes, since human beings work together in carrying out and developing these processes. Likewise, the social activity of human beings is determined by labor processes, since, for example, no other social activities can be carried out if human beings do not first have the material necessity for survival, and also impact natural labor processes, for instance, through the social/collective development of productive forces. Philosophy of Marxist-Leninism further defines the relationship which define humanity. Since humans are a product of nature and society, the formation and development of humanity are determined by three distinct unified sets of laws. The system of natural laws that determines the biological aspects of human beings. These include genetic inheritance and variations, evolutions, etc. The system of psychology and consciousness that exists on the basis of human biology, factors of consciousness, and psychology, including emotions, desires, beliefs, willpower, and so on. The system of social relations that determine the relations between humans within society. These three systems of laws together provide a comprehensive and unified perception of human life that includes both biological and social aspects. The relationship between biological and social aspects is the basis of our biological and social needs, such as needs for food, clothes, shelter, production, love, I don't know that word. My anesthetic? Are you there, Joe? And all other mental values. All right, I'm gonna look up this word, everybody. I'm sorry, it's not letting me say the word. It's AESTHETICS. It says aesthetics maybe, and all other mental volumes. Sorry, everybody. 2, human nature. Do you want to go ahead and just go up to human nature? Might as well, because that's section 2. I'll just finish off the section with your notes.
Hello. I assume I should go. Yes. What page were we? I don't know. The social aspects of humanity is analyzed from the following viewpoints. First, from the viewpoint of origin. I thought I did that one already. Okay, sorry. Unity of natural and social aspects of humanity. Sorry, I forgot to put a bookmark in here. These two aspects of humankind, the natural aspect and the social aspect, exist in unity, determine each other, impact each other, and transform each other, thereby creating the potential for creative human activity in the world and the process of making human history. The natural aspect and social aspect of humanity exist in unity. This means that they share a dialectical relationship in which they define one another and lead to change and development in one another. The natural aspect determines creativity in human beings because humans must create through labor processes in order to create the necessities for human life. The social aspect determines creativity in human beings because human beings share and cooperate creative developments through various forms of cultural and material exchange. Because the natural and social aspects of humanity exist in unity, they must be examined and understood together. The natural labor processes which human beings undertake to provide for our material needs are also social processes, since human beings work together in carrying out and developing these processes. Since humans are a product of nature and society, the formation and development of humanity are determined by 3 distinct but unified sets of laws. 1. The system of natural laws that determine the biological aspects of human beings. These include genetic inheritance and variation, evolution, etc. 2. The system of psychology and consciousness that exists on the basis of human biology. Factors of consciousness and psychology include emotions, desires, beliefs, willpower, and so on. 3. The system of social relations that determine the relations between humans within a society. These 3 systems of laws together provide a comprehensive and unified perception of human life that includes both biological and social aspects. That's it.
Sorry, I was just talking to Two-Spirit. That's like beauty and appearance. Thank you for that, Pocket. All right, here we go. Human nature. In history of human philosophy, there have been many different conceptions of human nature. Those conceptions are usually one-sided, abstract and idealist, and or mystical. Philosophy of Marxist-Leninism elaborates on various perceptions of human nature from various regions of historical periods. Eastern philosophical perception of human nature. Throughout more than 2,000 years of history, the Chinese philosophy, the issue of human nature, was always the chief concern. In the search for truth about human nature, 2 major schools of thought emerged, which view human nature as a phenomenon of political practice and social virtue. These philosophical systems were Confucianism and legalism. Confucianism is a religion or a systematic methodical doctrine that has existed since the 5th century BCE. Confucianism is concerned with humanity. Especially Confucianism teaches the way of being a human being in the family and in society. Legalism is a Chinese political philosophy that emerged in the 6th century BCE. Legalism advocated strict laws, harsh punishment, and centralized authority to maintain social order and state control. It was rooted in the belief that humans are inherently self-interested and require strong governance to prevent chaos. Confucius believed that humans are essentially good by nature, while legalists saw human nature as essentially evil. The third philosophical system from China was deeply concerned with attempting to understand human nature was Taoism. Taoist scholars such as Lao Zhi, one of the greatest thinkers of Taoism, approached this issue from a different angle and concluded that human nature is natural. It is important to note that Taoists' conception of nature and the natural world are quite different from Western conceptions of these concepts. Taoists view nature as a metaphysical system that includes gods, spirits, ghosts, monsters, and other beings, which would be considered supernatural in most Western philosophical systems. According to the article of Taoism by Dr. Pen Ngọc from the Vietnamese National Center of Social Science and Humanities, the Chinese Taoists did not imagine a god that created the world. Taoists believe that gods, humans, and the natural universe are unified as one whole. Therefore, they believe that ghosts and gods could control human destiny, and that likewise human could contact ghosts and gods through the intermediaries of witches and mediums. Taoists also believe that a human body contains thousands of gods, and that life is a phenomenon of Qi, a natural energy, a supernatural energy. Taoists believe that humans can achieve immortality through certain spiritual practices, alchemy, Qi circulation, and male and female relations. Is there a copy? Yes, there is. There's a copy in the Discord. Hey, look! Another restriction. Fucking hell, man. I'm just reading a damn book, man. That's all I'm doing. Reading a fucking book, man. Indeed, Taoists even believe that human beings... Okay, go on natural sciences. Okay, hold on. Taoists even believe that human beings contain gods and ghosts and can become immortal gods themselves. This is very different from Western perceptions of natural human nature. This describes, as described below in this annotation, the Vietnamese textbook, Philosophy and Marxist-Leninism, goes on to explain how different philosophical conceptions of human nature influenced philosophical schools of the East. These different models of perceptions of human nature became the premises of later schools of philosophies and the search for truth about politics, virtue, and human life. I don't know if this is indigenous or people from India. I think it's people from India. Indian philosophical theorists, especially Buddhists, tended to differ from Chinese philosophy of human nature. Buddhists approach the question of human nature from the angle of deep metaphysical thinking about humans and the human view of life. Buddhists conclude that human beings on the path towards enlightenment are essentially selfless, impermanent, and good. This is one of the unique conclusions of Buddhist philosophy. Next, it explains different concepts of human nature in Western idealist philosophical systems. In the West, idealist philosophers focus on rational activity as the basis for human nature. Notable idealist philosophers include Plato, of ancient Greece, Descartes of modern French philosophy, and Hegel in the classic German philosophy. Since they were not materialists, these philosophers resorted to mysticism in explaining human nature. To Plato, human nature is rooted in the immortal soul, which belongs to the realms of ideas. Descartes argued that human nature is rooted in rationality a priori. Hegel conceived of human nature in relations to his conception of the absolute ideal. In modern Western philosophy, many philosophical trends, such as existentialism, considered the philosophical issue of humans as essential. Plato's realm of ideas is a timeless, unchanged world of perfect abstract forms or concepts, i.e., beauty, justice, and equality, that exist beyond the physical world. According to Plato, the physical world we experience is merely a flawed reflection of these perfect forms. It is this conception of reality humans have an innate ability to recognize such perfect forms, because our souls once existed in the realms of ideas before being born in the physical world. This explains why we can identify imperfections in physical world, i.e., recognize something as not quite just, or not truly beautiful. Our souls supposedly remember the perfect forms and strives to reconnect with them through reason and philosophy. This constitutes the idealist and mystical conception of reality that was more in common with spirituality than natural science. Descartes argues that rationality is an innate and prior to experience concept embedded in human nature. Rationality, therefore, is the foundation of knowledge and the basis of understanding truth, such as mathematical and logical principles, which are universally valid and independent of sensory experience. Descartes believed that the capacity for reason is what defines human beings. In his famous statement, cogito ergo sum, I can't say it. I think, therefore I am. We are, I am, therefore I think. That's what we do. We flip that. We asserted that the act of thinking proves the existence of self and highlights the inherent rationality of human nature. This rational capacity allows humans to discern truth, doubt falsehoods, and achieve certainty through clear and distinct ideas. By placing thinking and rationality as the first basis of discovering truth in existence, Descartes' conception of reality of human nature are distinctly idealist. Hegel believed in what he called the absolute ideal, a unified dynamic totality of all ideas, history, and consciousness. To Hegel, this absolute ideal represents the complete realization of freedom, reaching the self-awareness in the universe. Hegel believed that human nature is fundamentally tied to the absolute ideal because humans are rational beings who actively participate in its unfolding. In this way, according to Hegel, human nature is not static, but is constantly evolving towards greater self-awareness and freedom, ultimately aligning with the absolute ideal. Hegel's conception are notable because they accurately perceive human nature as dynamic and constantly changing. This is how Marx and Engels describes human nature in the system of dialectical materialist philosophy. The key differences between Hegel and Marx's conception of human nature is that Hegel's system of thought is idealist, placing human consciousness as the first basis of human nature, whereas Marx's philosophy places the understanding of human nature on the material basis. Existentialism is a Western philosophy that emphasizes individual freedom, choice, and the creation of meaning in a seemingly indifferent or absurd universe. It focuses on subjective experiences and the idea that humans define their own essence through their actions and decisions. Existentialism is idealist in the sense that it prioritizes the mind, consciousness, and human agency over the material force of reality. Existentialism asserts that reality is shaped by individual perceptions, values, and choices, rather than objective material phenomena, thus putting the conception of human nature on an idealist basis. Next, philosophy of Marxist-Leninism describes Western conception of human nature rooted in various materialist philosophies. Many Western materialist philosophers have chosen to view human nature from the perspective of natural science. From ancient times, many Western materialist philosophers have believed that humans have a natural nature. These philosophers consider humans to be no different from their creatures, as human beings are also made from matter. Such materialist conceptions of human nature reject mystical interpretations of human nature. One of the most popular such perception is, oh my gosh, Democritus. Conclusion that the human body and soul are made up from atoms. This is also a premise for the, oh my gosh, Empirician philosophical school.
Epicurean.
Thank you. Democritus conceived the materialist view of nature based on the belief that all things, including humans and other animals, are composed of atoms. Epicurus, I think it's Epicurus, was a Greek philosopher who developed an empiricist philosophy that was rooted in atomistic materialism. Epicurus had an empiricist view of reality, believing that human sensation are the ultimate basis for discovering truth and understanding human nature. These materialist viewpoints were further developed during the Renaissance and in modern times, such as with English and French materialists of the 18th century. This Western materialist conception of human nature was the theoretical premise of the humanist materialist viewpoint of Feuerbach. The essence of Feuerbach philosophy shift focus from the divine to the human, asserting that understanding humanity, material and social conditions is key to understanding existence. His ideas heavily influenced Marx and Engels, who built on his materialism. Oh my gosh, another one, while critiquing his lack of emphasis on the practical revolutionary change. Jesus, another one. This is like my 8th one today. Jesus. Come on. The essence of Feuerbach philosophy shifts focus from the divine. Okay, I think I read that. Marx and Engels, okay. Feuerbach conception of humanist materialism also served as a major influence of the theoretical premises of the materialist viewpoint about humans in Marxism. Feuerbach's philosophy of humanist materialism is centered on the idea that religion and metaphysics are projections of human essence. Feuerbach argued that the material world is the only reality and consciousness arises from the material conditions. Marx and Engels are heavily influenced by Feuerbach's materialism, but they took issues with his sharp focus on human attributes and activities in isolation from the external material world. Philosophy of Marxist-Leninism concludes by explaining the important role of Marx's conception of human history. Generally speaking, all philosophical viewpoints before Marx or outside of Marxism, including Feuerbach's conception of humanist materialism, have a fundamental shortcoming. They are one-sided in the approach of the methodologies used to find answers to philosophical questions of human nature. Therefore, in history of humankind, there were many abstract ideas about human nature and idealist perceptions about human life, as well as idealist methods to attempt to liberate humanity. These shortcomings were overcome by dialectical materialist viewpoint in humans and human nature. I think, how much notes do you have? Because you seem to do a lot of notes. Do you have?
I did do a lot of notes on this section.
Why? All right, go ahead.
Because it's important. Okay. Human nature In the history of human philosophy, there have been many different conceptions of human nature, but those concepts are usually one-sided, abstract, idealist, and or mystical. We've got, I just want to skip the notes right now. That's all I feel.
Why do you want to skip the notes?
What?
Because there's so many notes.
Just do the notes.
Eastern philosophical perception of human nature. Throughout more than 2,000 years of history of Chinese philosophy, the issue of human nature was always of chief concern. In the search for truth about human nature, two major schools of thought emerged, which viewed human nature as a phenomenon of political practice and social virtue. This is Confucianism and legalism. Confucianism is a religion or a systemic and methodical doctrine that has existed since the 5th century. Confucianism teaches a way of being a human being in the family and in society. Legalism is a Chinese political philosophy that emerged in the 6th century. Legalism advocated strict laws, harsh punishment, centralized authority. It was rooted in the belief that humans are inherently self-interested and require strong governance to prevent chaos. Confucianists believe that humans are essentially evil, and Confucianists thought we were essentially good by nature. Legalists saw us as essentially evil. Another philosophical system was Taoism. Taoist scholars approached this issue from a different angle and concluded that human nature is natural. Taoists view nature as a mystical system that includes gods, spirits, ghosts, monsters, and other beings, which would be considered supernatural over here. Taoist conception that human beings are natural indicates that human beings are part of a mystical universe and can interact with and be influenced by such spiritual entities as gods and ghosts. Indian philosophical theorists, especially Buddhists, tended to differ from Chinese philosophies of human nature. In the West, idealist philosophers focused on rational activity as the basis for human nature. Notable idealist philosophers include Plato of ancient Greece, Descartes of modern French philosophy, and Hegel in the classic German philosophy. Plato's realm of ideas is a timeless, unchanging world of perfect abstract forms or concepts that exist beyond the physical world. According to Plato, the physical world we experience is merely a flawed reflection of those perfect forms. In this conception of reality, humans have an innate ability to recognize such perfect forms because our souls once existed in the realm of ideas before being born into the physical world. Descartes argued that rationality is an innate, a priori, prior to experience concept, embedded in human nature. I think, therefore I am. Hegel believed in what he called the absolute ideal, quote unquote, a unified, dynamic totality of all ideas, history, and consciousness. To Hegel, this absolute ideal represents the complete realization of freedom, reason, and self-awareness in the universe. Hegel believed that human nature is fundamentally tied to the absolute ideal because humans are rational beings who actively participate in its unfolding. Existentialism is a Western philosophy that emphasizes individual freedom, choice, and the creation of meaning in a seemingly indifferent or absurd universe. A lot of people are existentialists. It focuses on subjective experience and the idea that humans define their own essence through their actions and decisions. Many Western materialist philosophers have chosen to view human nature from the perspective of natural science. From ancient times, many Western materialist philosophers have believed that humans have a natural nature. Such materialist conceptions of human nature reject mystical interpretations of human nature. Democritus conceived a materialist view of nature based on a belief that all things, including humans and other animals, are composed of atoms. Oh, he was right. Epicurus was a Greek philosopher who developed an empiricist philosophy that was rooted in atomistic materialism. Epicurus had an empiricist view of reality.
Empiricist.
Empiricist. Thank you. I couldn't figure out that word for the life of me. Believing that human sensations are the ultimate basis for discovering truth and understanding human society. Feuerbach's philosophy shifts focus from the divine to the human, asserting that understanding humanity's material and social conditions is key to understanding existence. His ideas heavily influenced Marx and Engels. Feuerbach's philosophy of humanist materialism is centered on the idea that religion and metaphysics are projections of human essence. Feuerbach argued that the material world is the only reality, and consciousness arises from material conditions. Instead of I think, therefore I am, therefore I think. Generally speaking, all philosophical viewpoints before Marx are outside of Marxism, including Feuerbach's conception of humanist materialism, have a fundamental shortcoming. They are one-sided in the approaches and methodologies used to find answers to philosophical questions of human nature. Caught up.
All right. What's up, Dooley?
Well, I don't disagree with the book on the existentialism thing. I do want to say not all existentialism is not equal, because the existentialism of Fanon does not just focus on the individual themselves, but how the individual plays into the greater whole of the society and their impact.
All right, thanks. All right, let's go on. Limitations of viewpoints of human nature prior to dialectical materialism. Before the development of dialectical materialism and historical materialist conception of humanity, the ideal of human nature as quite limited, tending to be one-sided, considering the nature of humanity is only one aspect. Oh my God, another fucking... they don't like me.
You aren't even like hammer and sickles.
There's 8. That's like 5 right now. That's 5. Limitations of viewpoints. Okay, we're gonna do this all over again. One-sided. Consider the nature of humanity in only one aspect, or from a very limited metaphysical perspective. Such conceptions of human nature tend to see humanity as static and unchanging, and split human beings into metaphysical categories and or listing characteristics without recognizing the dialectical relationship between humanity and society. According to the textbook Philosophy of Marxist-Leninism, throughout history, there have been many different perceptions that differentiate humans from animals. For example, humans have been considered as animals that can use tools, animals that have social characteristics, and even animals that can think, etc. All of these perceptions are one-sided because they only emphasize one aspect of social nature of humans without pointing out the origins of the social nature. Abstract, considering humanity in terms of pure philosophy, without taking into consideration the concrete lives of human beings. In the German ideology, Marx demanded that in examining humanity, we must seek to understand real living men. Man, idealist, focuses entirely on human consciousness activity without recognizing the dialectical relationship between matter and consciousness, and the fact that material proceeds determine human consciousness activity. Mystical describes human nature as determined by religious and spiritual forces, deities, or other supernatural phenomena. Such conceptions tend to be fideistic in nature, deriving from received wisdom, or of religious texts or practices, or taken on faith, rather than being derived from empirical or scientific observation of reality of human activity. Historically, as Marx and Engels observed philosophy as tended to exist to justify the ruling class in any given era of class society, and this extended the conception of human nature. For example, in the feudal era, human nature was conceived of in ways that tended to justify the feudal mode of production and the dominance of the ruling class of feudal lords, who were described as noble and inherently superior and separated from peasants and other oppressed classes who were seen as subservient by nature. Such limitations are present today in bourgeois philosophy and ideology, which tends to formulate to defend the capitalist mode of production. For example, a common conception of human nature is bourgeoisie ideology suggests that human beings are naturally competitive or inherently greedy, and that capitalism thus harnesses this innate capitalist human nature. Capitalism is therefore described in many forms of bourgeoisie philosophy as a natural fit for humanity, even though capitalism has only existed for a short time in comparison to thousands of years of human history. Historical materialist conceptions of human nature overcome all of these limitations by recognizing the complex nature of humanity, seeking a comprehensive perspective of humanity through the analysis of internal and external relationships, as well as a historical perspective through the analysis of the development of humanity over time. This historical materialist conception of humanity is described in more detail in the following section. In the thesis of Feuerbach, Karl Marx briefly criticized previous conceptions of human nature and affirmed his new conception. The human essence is no abstraction inherent in each single individual. In its reality, it is an ensemble of social relations. Philosophy of Marxist-Leninism by Dr. Nyagen Norak. I can't say the name.
Nyagen is spelled Win. It's pronounced Win.
Thank you. Long further explains the historical materialist conception of human nature. Marx's conception of human nature affirms that there is no abstract human nature that exists outside of all social and historical conditions and circumstances. Humans are always concrete and specific. This means that humans always live in specific historical conditions at a specific time. In those historical conditions, through our practical activities, humans create material and mental value for the existence and development of our physical and mental health. Humans can only truly express our social nature in that assembly of social relations. Such assemblies. Is that how you say it? Assemblies.
I'm highlighting on a different paragraph. I don't know.
Hold on. Oh no! Such assemblies. Is that how you say it? Assemblies.
I'm highlighting on a different paragraph. I don't know.
Hold on. Oh no! Comments. Nope, that doesn't work. Usually Joe does this. Thank you, Joe. Do you got it? Jesus. All right, cool. I'm still in the restriction. Ensembles of social relations include, but are not limited to, relations between classes, individuals, and the mode of production, relations between politics and the economy, relationships between the family, the individual, and society. It must be further understood that the above conception of the social nature of humans does not neglect the natural aspect of human life. The natural aspect of humanity exists in unity with social aspects. Even the biological need of humans also have social characteristics. For example, human beings need to interact with nature and with other humans to meet even the most basic biological needs. No human being can realistically survive in pure isolation without any other human beings forever. Dialectical materialist philosophy methodology defines humanity and human nature in terms of internal and external relationships. This interpretation of human nature correctly asserts that social relations determine human nature through countless processes of development which are driven by these relationships, and that human nature is thus a complex and constantly developing phenomenon in which individual human interacts with the developed human society and vice versa. The basic limitations and the intuitive of metaphysical materialist perspectives is that it has abstracted the absolutized the natural aspects of humankind and often underestimated the interpretations of humans from its social historical perspective. The intuitive and metaphysical materialist perspective essentially recognizes the natural aspects of humanity alone while ignoring the social aspect. Intuitive and metaphysical materialism refers to vulgar forms of materialism which fail to consider the complex social relations which also define humanity along with the material/natural aspects. For instance, such conception might suffer from mechanical materialism, which holds that human beings are exclusively defined by material processes. This perspective fails to take into account the role of human consciousness, which can impact back on the material reality through conscious labor activity. Intuitive conceptions of human nature tend to suffer from various deviations from dialectical materialism, which cause confusion, distortion in perception of reality, and other mistakes. The lapse of analysis. Such deviations include dogmatism, refers to ignoring practical experiences and holding pre-established theories and ideas as unalterable truths. Mechanical materialists are often dogmatic in their belief that the material alone accounts for all change and development in the world, ignoring the evidence that conscious activity can impact back on the material world. Dogmatism can also lead to intuitive perceptions of human nature, wherein people preconceive of their own ideas about human nature and ignore all evidence which contradict those perceptions. Solipsism is the belief that the self is the only basis for truth. Solipsism is the root cause of intuitive conceptions of human nature, as it exclusively relies on personal intuition as the basis for discovering truth solely in one's own thoughts and ideas. Subjectivism is the center of the one's own self in one's own conscious activities, as well as a failure to test one's own perception against the material social reality. Subjectivists, like solipsists, tend to believe that they can reason their way to truth without testing their ideas against objective reality. This tends to lead to intuitive notions of human nature and ultimately fails to discover truth. In ignoring the social aspects of humanity, mechanical materialists neglect to recognize the important ways in which social consciousness can impact back upon social being. In contrast to intuitive and metaphysical materialist conceptions of human nature, the dialectical materialist conception of human nature acknowledges that natural aspect while also analyzing humans from the perspective of social historical relations, thereby discovering the social aspects of humanity. Furthermore, the social aspects of humanity is the most essential part that makes a person a person. This is to say, it is a social aspect of humanity which distinguishes humans from other existence of the natural world. Thus, it is impossible to define humans as a natural entity, but as a natural entity with social characteristics. Thus, in reality, human nature is, quote, the assemble of social relations, because human society is composed of all relationships between people in all fields, including political, economic, culture, and so on. The dialectical materialist viewpoint of the social aspect of humanity is the exploration of the formation of development of humanity and the human ability to create history, the analysis of the formation and development of social relations in history. The historical materialist perspective does not consider fields of study such as sociology, anthropology, human biology, psychology, natural history, and human history to be metaphysically distinct from one another. Instead, historical materialism examines the dialectical relationship between all these fields to develop a comprehensive and historical understanding of humanity. Historical materialism is fundamentally the study of humanity using the dialectical materialist philosophical methodology, which seeks understanding through exploration of internal and external relationships and the development which these relationships cause over time. Thus, it is critical to understand the origins and development of humanity to understand humanity today, to make reasonable predictions about the future, and to effect change in the material world. Humans are uniquely, is it uniquely? It's not uniquely. Is it uniquely? What's that word?
Again, I'm highlighting.
Okay, hold on a second, right back.
Again, I'm highlighting.
Okay, hold on a second, right back. Uniquely able to create history because all humans are able to recall, organize, analyze, and interpret historical records through conscious activity. This gives human beings a unique and profound ability to understand how objective reality has developed over time. By analyzing and interpreting history, we are able to develop a scientific understanding of how our own society has developed, the objective and material basis for this development, and the objective laws which govern this development. Historical materialism is the application of dialectical materialist philosophy and materialist dialectical methodologies to the study of analysis of human history. Historical materialism exists with the objective of understanding how history and development of capitalism so that it can ultimately be superseded, and so that the stateless, classless society can be built and human beings can begin collectively writing our own history without the inherent limitations of economic class division. Marx explains in economic and philosophical manuscripts, communism is the complete return of man to himself as a social being, a return accomplished consciously and embracing the entire wealth of previous developments. This means that once human beings have built a communist society, it will enable the human species to consciously write our own history in ways that were not previously possible in class society, rather than being bound to the objective social forces of class struggle. Humanity will be free to pursue objectives of our own collective choosing. This will only be possible once human society and human individuals and the natural world are brought into harmonious unity. This harmony must be built cautiously and collectively by humanity as a whole. This is the essence of communism, as defined by Karl Marx. This communism is fully developed naturalism, equals humanism, and as fully developed humanism equals naturalism. It is the genuine resolution of the conflict between man and nature, and between man and man, and the true resolution of the strife between existence and essence, between objectification and self-confirmation, between freedom and necessity, between the individual and the species. Communism is the riddle of history solved, and it knows itself to be this solution. For the anthropological viewpoint, anthropology, i.e., from the viewpoint of natural aspects of humanity, an enslaved person is simply a person. Only in an economic political relation of the slave-owning society do they become an enslaved person. Under socialist political economic relations, the same person will become a free person, a master and a creator of history. Thus, there is no inherent and consistent slave nature of any persons, derived from ethnicity, national origins, etc. The characteristic of being enslaved is an objective outcome of socio-political economic relations under certain historical conditions. When these relationships change, it also creates a change in human nature. Therefore, the liberation of human nature needs to be directed towards the liberation of economic, political, culture, and social relations, throughout which the history creating ability of humans can be promoted. Human beings, let me look ahead here. Looking for the next stopping point.
I highlighted the next stopping point.
What page?
It's only a couple pages away.
Okay, what page was I on again? Shit.
You're on page 261.
261. Okay, good.
At
All
the
right.
very top.
The very bottom, or no, hold on.
Tip top. Tip top.
Yeah, from the anthropologist. Okay, history. I'm going to read this. From the anthropologist.
Human beings and slave societies. That's where you're at.
Where?
On page 261, at the very top, human beings and slave societies.
Okay, human beings in slave societies are not enslaved because of any characteristic related to biology, national origins, or other subjective characteristics. Rather, human beings become enslaved because of the objective material conditions which give rise to the phenomenon of slavery. The Soviet textbook, Fundamentals of Marxist-Leninism, summarizes the material conditions which led to slavery in ancient societies. The foundation of the production relations of this system was private ownership, not only of the means of production, but also of the working men themselves as slaves. Slave owners' property rights over the slaves and over all they produced was determined by the level of development of the productive forces of that epoch. This level was sufficiently high to give rise to the possibility of exploitation of the working people. But at the same time, productivity was still so low that exploitation of the working men and the appropriation of a part of what they produce could be accomplished only by reducing the consumption of slaves to a minimum, leaving them just enough to prevent them from unaliving of hunger. Throughout history, various societies have attempted to justify exploitative practices, such as slavery, by developing ideologies which suggest that some groups of human beings are inferior to others. This constitutes false consciousness, which has been fabricated by the ruling classes to excuse their own abuses against their fellow human beings. In truth, every human being has the capacity to be free and to have a voice and power in society. There is no objective justification for exploitation or enslavement of any human being. Class society itself is a manifestation of social relations of human beings, and humanity will not be freed from class society through mysticism, technological innovation, nor any other such pursuits outside of the development of class consciousness of the working class. Only working class consciousness can lead to a social revolution which will eliminate class society. All the social relations which exist between human beings, economic relationships are most important, as these objective material relations play a determining role in the existence of development of humanity. This is the basis of socioeconomic formation theory. Thus, there are no non-historical humans. We are always attached to certain historical conditions. It is necessary for such a viewpoint to properly explain the ability of humans to create history. The limitations of the history creating ability of peasants cannot be explained from their nature, but on the contrary, must be explained from a perspective of the limited level of development of economic, political, and cultural relations of feudal society. I'm almost there. Am I almost there? In order for non-historical humans to exist, that human would have to have absolutely no relationship to any other human beings, which is inherently impossible. All human beings are products of and participants in social relations. These social relations lead to development of human society, and this development is what we call history. Philosophy of Marxist-Leninist further explains the historical characteristics of human beings. If there were no natural world, no human society, no history, then there would be no human beings. Therefore, humans are a product of history and of the long-term evolution of the biological world. However, the most important thing to remember is this: humans are always the subject of social history. As social beings, humans engage in practical activities together. We impact nature, change nature, and at the same time, in doing so, cause the development of social history. Animals rely on existing conditions of nature. Humans, on the other hand, develop nature with our practical activities and create a second nature following our purpose. This second nature, oh my gosh, another freaking thing. Jesus. Thus, humans, from the social nature viewpoint, are products of history. To the extent that history creates humans, humans also create history to the same extent. This is the dialectical relationship between humans as the subject of history and the history that we have created ourselves. Simultaneously, humans are regulated by the history we have created. Human society and human history exist in dialectical unity with each other. This is simply a manifestation of the principle of development of dialectical materialism. This principle states that development is a process that comes from within the thing in itself, the process of solving the contradiction with the thing and phenomenon. Therefore, developed is inevitable, objective, and occurs without dependence on human will. Human society is defined by internal and external relationships, which cause development to change over time. The human history is simply a sum total of all those developments over time. Humanity in our present capitalist society and humanity is as it existed under feudalism are one of the same. Capitalism and feudalism are simply different stages of development of the same subject, humanity. Philosophy and Marxist-Leninism further explains. In the process of changing nature, humans also create our own history. Humans are a product of history, and at the same time are the ones that create our own history. Production activities are, on the one hand, the necessary conditions for the existence of human. humans, and on the other hand, the methods that we use to change our life and society on the basis of fully understanding the social historical rules. And with both mental and material activities, humans cause the development of society from lower to higher levels and to make the society more suitable to our needs. There would be no objective laws of development of human society if there is no human activities, and by extension, there would be no history of the entirety of human society if there is no human activity. Therefore, it can be seen that the basic limitations of metaphysical materialist conception of human nature is that it only sees a decisiveness of the historical situations upon humans, but does not see the creative relationships of humans in the process of change. The situation, therefore, also changes themselves. What page did you say was the stopping point?
1.5 pages from there.
Jeez. This metaphysical, mechanical, materialist conception of human nature is rooted in a misunderstanding of the relationship between matter and consciousness. Such vulgar materialism argues that matter and material process completely dictate human consciousness. Thus, a metaphysical materialist conception of human history would argue that human beings are simply swept up in objective processes of history without any ability to affect the development of human society. Similarly, a metaphysical materialist conception of human nature would argue that human beings lack agency in the world and are unable to affect the world. The dialectical materialist conception argues in contrast that matter determines consciousness, but that consciousness can impact on matter through conscious labor activity. Thus, human history is determined by objective material processes, but human beings are capable of impacting back on those processes. A dialecticalist conception of human nature must allow for human ability to impact back on our society and to intervene in historical processes. Ultimately, the dialectical materialist conception of humanity must accurately reflect the conceptions of the relationship between matter and consciousness without straying into metaphysical materialism, which holds that material processes completely dictate the development of humanity while simultaneously avoiding idealism, which holds that human consciousness can completely determine material processes. Marx asserted that the materialist doctrine that men are products of circumstances and upbringing forgets that it is men who change circumstances and that the educator must himself be educated. In the work Dialectics of Nature, Engels also argues that animals also have a history that of their derivation. How you say it? Huh?
Derivation? I don't know. That's my guess.
And gradual evolution to their present position. This history, however, is made for them, and as far as they themselves take part in it, this occurs without their knowledge or desires. On the other hand, the more that human beings become removed from animals, in the narrow sense of the word, the more they make their own history consciously. Therefore, as a social entity, people, through practical activities, affect the natural world and modify the natural world according to their needs for survival and development. At the same time, people also create their own history and carry out the development of that history. Humanity is able to consciously develop itself through practical activity, but there are limitations to this conscious development, especially in class society, as Marx wrote in the 18th Brumaire of Louis Bonaparte. Men make their own history, but they do not make it as they please. They do not make it under self-selected circumstances, but under circumstances existing already, given and transmitted from the past. The traditions of all dead generations weighs like a nightmare on the brains of the living. How much more do we have left? Oh,
One page.
okay. Jeez. Where was I at? In the oh, I did that one. There. Oh, wait, no, I did that
Or
one.
the one like trying to read more.
Class society is a major impediment. Yeah. In humanity. Humanity's ability to consciously develop our own history. This is because class society forces humanity to develop in accordance with class struggle, contradictions, and oppositions which occur between competing classes of human society. Once class society is abolished entirely, humanity will have much more freedom to collectively and consciously determine our own social development. From the Marxist-Leninist scientific conception of humanity, the following important methodological implications can be drawn. First, it is impossible. Where'd you go? Come back. It is impossible to scientifically explain human problems only through examining the natural aspects of humanity. It's fundamental to also examine the social aspects of humanity, i.e. the economic and social relations of human. Second, the fundamental driving force of progress and development of society is the capacity of humanity to create history. Therefore, we must promote the creative capacity of each person because humans are the main driving force of progress and development of society. Third, human liberation. In order to promote history, can you bring them up? In order to promote history, creating ability of humanity must be directed towards the cause. Where was I at? The cause of liberating social economic relation. In that methodological sense, it can be seen that one of the most fundamental values of the socialist revolution lies in the goals of thoroughly abolishing oppressive and exploitative socioeconomic relations which suppress the ability of humans to create history. Revolution must also carry out the cause of liberating all of mankind by building socialist and communist social economic relations in order to establish and develop a society where one person, all of mankind by building socialist and communist social economic relations in order to establish and develop a society where one person's creation becomes the condition for another's freedom and creativity. That is also the most noble moral philosophy of communism, one for all and all for one. The phrase one for all and all for one was made most famously by Alexandre Dumas as the oath of the main characters in his novel, The Three Musketeers. But its origins go back centuries, originally formulated in Latin as, I cannot say that. Look everybody, I got another restriction.
Oh my goodness.
Formulated in Latin as, I cannot say that. Look everybody, I got another restriction.
Oh my goodness.
You better say the Latin. TikTok.
I'm not saying the Latin. Unus pro omnibus, omnis pro uno. Nope, not doing it. This slogan became widely adopted by communists around the world during the 20th century. For example, it was used in Soviet labor brigades of the 1960s and was featured as a principle of the most moral code of the builder of communism, which was adopted by the Communist Party of the Soviet Union in 1961. In Vietnam, the expression is translated to, I cannot do that, and is commonly used in Vietnamese communists to express the spirit and attitude of communist revolution. For example, the expression was used in The Great Unity, the official newspaper of the Vietnamese Fatherland Front during the outbreak of COVID in 2020. One for all and all for one refers not only to each person awareness of the community, but also the actions and gestures of sacrificing the interests of individuals, organizations, and businesses joining hands to prevent the epidemic. Notably, all for one and one for all was favorite model of Jenny Marx, daughter of Karl Marx. The expression was also used by Ho Chi Minh. What are socialist ideologies and socialist manners? And the definition of the masses, of the history created in the roles of the masses. Oh, is this another thing? Oh, there's more. Still more. Definition of the masses. Okay, cool. All right, so we'll stop there for right now. Looks like I still have more to go. Let's find out real quick. That's not the end of the chapter, is it, Joe? Nope.
No.
Not the end of the chapter. All right, we'll stop here then. I will go on pause and you go ahead and
do the notes. Okay. Bookmarks. This one. Limitations of you. Nope, that's the old one. I hate when I don't do a new bookmark. Nope, 128, 127. Oh my goodness. I have a lot of notes. Limitations of viewpoints of human nature prior to dialectical materialism. Before the development of dialectical materialist and historical materialist conceptions of humanity, the idea of human nature was quite limited, tending to be one-sided, abstract, idealist, and mystical. Historically, as Marx and Engels observed, philosophy has tended to exist to justify the ruling class in any given era of class society, and this extended to conceptions of human nature. Such limitations are present today in bourgeois philosophy and ideology, which tends to be formulated to defend the capitalist mode of production. Human beings are naturally competitive or inherently greedy is false. Capitalism has only existed for a very short time in comparison to the thousands of years of human society. Historical materialist conceptions of human nature overcome all of these limitations by recognizing the complex nature of humanity, seeking a comprehensive perspective of humanity through the analysis of internal and external relationships, as well as a historical perspective through the analysis of the development of humanity over time. Marx's conception of human nature affirms that there is no abstract human nature that exists outside of all social and historical conditions and circumstances. Humans are always concrete and specific. Humans can only truly express our social nature in that ensemble of social relations. Such ensembles of social relations include, but are not limited to, relations between classes, individuals, and the mode of production, relations between politics and the economy, relations between the family, the individual, and society. Okay, the natural aspects of humanity exist in unity with social aspects. Even the biological needs of humans also have social characteristics. This interpretation of human nature correctly asserts that social relations determine human nature through countless processes of development which are driven by these relationships, and that human nature is thus a complex and constantly developing phenomenon. The basic limitation of the intuitive and metaphysical materialist perspective is that it has abstracted and absolutized the natural aspect of humankind and often underestimated the interpretation of humans from its socio-historical perspective. Intuitive and metaphysical materialism refers to vulgar forms of materialism which fail to consider the complex social relations which also define humanity. This perspective fails to take into account the role of human consciousness, which can impact back on material reality through conscious labor activity. Intuitive conceptions of human nature tend to suffer from various deviations from dialectical materialism, which cause confusion, distortions in perception of reality, and other mistakes and lapses in analysis. Such deviations include dogmatism and solipsism. Dogmatism refers to ignoring practical experience and holding pre-established theory and ideas as unalterable truth. Solipsism is the belief that the self is the only basis for truth. Subjectivism is the centering of one's own self and one's own conscious activities, as well as a failure to test one's own perceptions against material and social reality. Subjectivists, like solipsists, tend to believe that they can reason their way to truth without testing their idea against objective reality. In contrast to the intuitive and metaphysical materialist conception of human nature, The dialectical materialist conception of human nature acknowledges the natural aspect, while also analyzing humans from the perspective of socio-historical relations, thereby discovering the social aspect of humanity. Furthermore, the social aspect of humanity is the most essential aspect that makes a person a person. That is to say, it is the social aspect.
Can I interrupt you
What?
real quick? We have Isaiah here. Isaiah, please join the
Okay, go
panel.
ahead.
Isaiah, please join the panel. Please join the panel, Isaiah. Come on, Isaiah. I need you to join the panel. I have something to confront you on. If you don't join the panel, I'm going to make it public. Come on, Isaiah. Join the panel.
Yes,
Don't
Lynn.
run now.